talk about this, I guess you could say this takedown by Russell Brand of MSNBC. Let me go ahead and kind of preview this video. We're going to be talking a little bit about this takedown. We're also going to be talking about this one fallacy, or this one little issue that I did have, which, by the way, is going to make this video a lot longer, so make sure you guys stick around. Also, to go on top of that, we kind of need to explain the rebranding of Russell Brand itself, so that way people can kind of sort of get a much better picture of what's going on. I will also be leaving this video right here in the description box to kind of help you guys out with that. I advise you guys watch it. It's a pretty good video. And with that right there being said, let's go ahead.
To sit within the castle of MSNBC throwing rocks at Fox News is ludicrous.
My friend,
make MSNBC better. Make MSNBC great again.
My friend, I would, the moment...
Fight them on a territory you can win on, Joe.
Russell, darling, the moment that you give me a specific example, an actual example...
Okay, I'll give you one.
Wait, just wait.
Wait,
Just
let him go. Just we need a specific example.
How about a specific... Let me tell you what the specific...
That right there was just a small piece of the little, how do I say, the little meltdown of MSNBC right there on Bill Maher, which of course is kind of funny considering the fact that it came from Russell Brand. Now, me personally, I've never really been a fan of Brand, but we do need to discuss this because I have noticed a change in Russell, which, by the way, I think is a pretty good change, actually. As a matter of fact, I actually think it's a little bit more genuine than Bill Maher's supposed red pilling that people claim that he has, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, gang, we're going to play the full 3 minutes or so of this clip here in a second. We're going to come back on the other side, but I want to go let you guys know right off the bat, there is this one fallacy in there, but let me go ahead and kind of explain this first. Maybe Russell Brand has figured out what myself and a lot of others also figured out, which reminds me, this video right here, this TED Talk, will also be in the comments section, so I advise you guys check it out. We'll be doing a project on it at a later date. The mainstream media likes to use a certain type of playbook to manipulate its audience. Fox News does it. Fox News does it primarily by putting a Republican or a Democrat, an actual talking head, and having them actually go at one another, or the two talking heads to actually do that. And then, of course, they simp for the Republican establishment, where the MSNBC, on the other hand, they are no longer simping for the Democrat establishment, but they're definitely simping for the woke left, which I think has overtaken the Democrat establishment, or is taking over the Democrat establishment. We'll also use The Hill, for example, the show Rising. They love to brand themselves on being an anti-establishment network, but yet the only people that they had on, especially when Crystal and Sagar were on, Sagar being one of the weakest supposed conservatives I've ever seen, they used to only bring on left-wing guests. Cenk Uygur, for example, was a bit of a regular. They're using pro wrestling. They're claiming that they're unbiased, but obviously we all know that they are biased as hell. CNN, of course, is pretty freaking bad, even though the people who have taken over CNN are trying to bring it right back more towards the center. I don't think this right here will work, but still at the same time, though, Russell Brand seems to have figured out what the mainstream media playbook is, which, of course, he would probably know. I mean, the guy was an actor and a comedian. Now, we're going to roll this clip, and then we're going to talk about what he said. We're going to talk about the rebranding, of course, and, of course, we're going to talk about that little fallacy, which, of course, is going to make this video a little bit longer than what you probably would have expected.
I've known you long, but I love you already. But I have to say that it's disingenuous to claim that the biases that are exhibited on Fox News are any different from the biases exhibited on MSNBC. It's difficult to suggest that these corporations operate as anything other than mouthpieces for their affiliate owners in BlackRock and Vanguard. And unless we start to embrace, and also, mate, like just spiritually, if I may use that word in your great country, we have to take responsibility for our own perspective. I've been on that MSNBC, mate. It was propagandist nutcrackery on there. I went on a show called Morning Joe. It was absurd the way they carried on.
Good Morning Joe.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It wasn't morning. There was no one called Joe there. No one could concentrate. They didn't understand the basic tenets of journalism. No one was willing to stick up for genuine American heroes like Edward Snowden. No one was willing to talk about Julian Assange and what he's suffered trying to bring real journalism to the American people. And I think to sit within the castle of MSNBC throwing rocks at Fox News is ludicrous.
My friend,
make MSNBC better. Make MSNBC great again.
My friend, the moment...
Fight them on a territory you can win on, Joe.
Russell, darling, the moment that you give me a specific example, An actual example.
Okay, I'll give you
Oh,
one.
Wait, just wait.
Race
Just
your Maddow.
wait.
Let him go. Let him
We
go.
need a specific example.
How about a specific?
let him finish.
Let me tell you what the specific I'd like to hear of. I'd like to hear a specific example, a provable specific example of an MSNBC correspondent or anchor being on television saying something they knew was false, and we're saying behind the scenes to people, I'm about to go out, and we know that the election wasn't stolen
You've
or something
illustrated this
equivalent.
example.
But I will go out on television and say the
Okay.
opposite. I will lie.
When's my answer?
Just give me the specific example.
I understand the basic
Okay,
point.
Give me a specific example.
All right.
I'm with you. I think it's a false equivalency, Russell.
It's a
that they-
No, it's not. That's your own biases, plainly.
It's not about bias. It's a false equivalency because you don't actually know anything about any of these organizations you're talking about. Even on MSNBC once, big fucking deal.
My darling, it was more than enough.
You can't come
It
up
was
with
such a
You
carry-on.
don't have a single actual fact.
Do you want an example? Do you want an example?
Yes.
The ludicrous, outrageous criticisms of Joe Rogan around ivermectin, deliberately referring to it as a horse medicine when they know it's an
Non-responsive.
effective medicine.
Non-responsive.
Yeah, that's not a bad
Rachel
example.
Maddow turning up on the TV saying, if you take this vaccine, you're not going to get it, when it hadn't been
Non-responsive.
clinically trialed for transmission.
Non-responsive.
You have to listen.
Wait.
Do you think you
Not
can
a
improve
response.
America
I
by
think we could all
determinedly
be
and
better.
avowedly condemning Fox News without acknowledging that you're participating in the same game? Did you not just listen to Bernie Sanders, someone who plainly, legitimately believes in this country and believes it's possible to change, but is bound by corruption, is bound by the lobbying system? Surely it's clear to you, Bill, as one of the great pundits and experts and comic voices, that systemic change is required. Money has to be taken out of politics. We need new political systems that genuinely represent ordinary Americans so that we can overcome cultural differences. And bickering about which propagandist network is the worst is not going to save a single American life, not improve the life of a single American child, not going to improve America's standing in the world, and the world needs a strong America. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. So you have an obligation, a duty, not to condemn these
It's
people.
always good to see the left get a taste of its own medicine. Now, guys, before I go any further on this, let me go ahead and tell you guys a little bit of an admission about myself. It was roughly right around 2011 when I actually started to get involved in politics itself and started to get involved in what was actually going on in the world. I didn't really care about it until after the Obamacare ordeal because I realized that my tax dollars would really and truly be affected at that point in time. I had just gotten out of the Marine Corps a few years prior, and I was actually working in the civilian world, and I found out that the economy was pretty crappy, a lot crappier than I initially believed. And one of the first news networks that I watched was MSNBC. Well, it only took me about 3 or 4 days of watching Chris Matthews to realize that, well, MSNBC is not exactly what we call an honest network. I mean, even I myself could tell that the reality was different than what the hell they were painting on TV. Russell Brand, on the other hand, has always been a comedian and very, very much on the left at one point in time. But he has gone through a shift, and I'll mention it a little bit more here in a second. It's one of the reasons why I'm leaving that moon video in the description box of this video here. Fact of the matter is that MSNBC is probably the worst of all the networks. Now, I'm not saying that Fox News is not propaganda, because Fox News is very, very much the Republican establishment channel. I stopped watching them roughly right around 2018. It was just a very, very bad feeling about it. I had a feeling they were going to go in a certain direction, and of course, I ended up being proven completely correct. CNN, of course, is also pretty bad, but they've gotten progressively worse as the Democratic Party has gotten progressively worse. My theory has always been that MSNBC was the woke left network, the communist news network, the network that pushes the, let's just say, the stuff that we're seeing today that we really and truly aren't supposed to have in American society. CNN, on the other hand, they simply just towed the Democratic Party in line. Now, recently, they've gotten to the point where they've actually called out MSNBC. Don't worry, I'll provide that clip in the description box. And to go on top of that, CNN is trying to go through a bit of a rebrand, trying to bring themselves back towards the center. You'll hear me say it again in this video, but quite frankly, I don't think it's going to work. MSNBC, and this is very, very weird, what I'm about to say. A lot of people are going to say that MSNBC is extremely far left, like I just said, woke left. However, the thing about woke is that woke is actually very, very much corporate. The left that they're peddling doesn't even resemble really what the Soviet Union communism was. As a matter of fact, a lot of the stuff that occurred in the Soviet Union, they would not be on board with the crap that the current left-wing establishment is pushing. The drag queen story hours in front of kids, things like that. Their Soviet Union wouldn't have gone along with that. As a matter of fact, I think they had an anti-gay policy when they were when Stalin was there, and even when Khrushchev was there. They also had a lot of policies that, quite frankly, don't represent what the Democratic Party represents today, which, by the way, were a lot worse. Fact of the matter is this right here is closer to fascism than it is anything else. It's absolutely hilarious. It's always good to see somebody take down a bunch of woke liberal journalists, especially these journalists who, quite frankly, don't believe in journalism anymore because all they do is lie to you. However, there is this one fallacy, this one problem that I do have. It's the comments that he had about Bernie Sanders. Don't worry, we'll get to that in a second because that right there is actually the portion that's going to make this a lot longer. Fact of the matter is that Russell Brand has figured out over the years that this entire thing is a great big giant joke, and he's found out that people have been lying to the country for a while. If you actually watch his channel, and like I said, I was never a fan of Brand, but he does bring up some good stuff from time to time, and he is definitely on the left. Don't get me wrong. I'm not fooled by this. He's definitely still very much on the left, but he's definitely more of a, let's just say he's more of a truth seeker now than he is an actual leftist. As a matter of fact, if you actually look at the progression of him, it looks more like the natural progression from the left itself. It's one of the main reasons why I'm leaving that video from Moon in the description box, which, by the way, like I said before, I invite you guys to please watch that. You will see something and you will notice a great amount of changes. However, he's still somewhat stuck in this mindset that Bernie Sanders was just this poor, hapless little soul and this really, really good man and this actual truthful person, when in reality, Bernie Sanders is really just a good old-fashioned, how do I say this, freeloading SOB. Now, guys, let me explain this to you. And don't worry, I'll be showing you guys some recent clips that came out that kind of show you he's not just some America warrior that happens to be a socialist. No, Bernie Sanders is very, very much complicit, and he's very, very much a part of the swamp. Look, in 2016, if he really and truly wanted to be badass, what he would have done was he would have ran third party. He cucked to the Democrat establishment. Something else, too, in 2020, if he really and truly believed in the actual beliefs that he had, it's funny because he used to talk about how much he didn't like billionaires and how much billionaires had to pay. But he also said millionaires and billionaires. Then he became a millionaire and got 3 homes and, of course, wrote a book. Next thing you know, he's not going after millionaires anymore. He's just simply going after billionaires. It's kind of how you know that the whole thing is one great big giant joke and one great big giant game. This guy claims to not be in favor of wars. This guy claims to not be in favor of endless wars, as he calls it. But then this right here happens.
America send F-16s.
It's not an issue that I've been heavily involved in, but I support what the president is doing. I think what Putin did was outrageous, not only for the people of the Ukraine and all the destruction, not only for the thousands and tens of thousands of Russian soldiers who have been dying. We need a world now, if we're going to combat climate change, if we're going to combat future pandemics, we need a world to come together. And Putin has radically disrupted that, and that is a real tragedy. But I think at the end of the day, the United States, NATO cannot sit back and allow Putin's aggression to go unresponded.
This guy claims to not be in favor of wars. This guy claims to not be in favor of endless wars, as he calls it. But then this right here happens. Now, gang, you're probably thinking to yourself, how in the world do you know he's just simping for the establishment? Well, he just told you right there. He basically told you this. If he really and truly was an actual man of the left who actually believed in the left, then he would more than likely be anti-war. Bernie Sanders is not anti-war. Bernie Sanders is simply supporting the current thing. He has cucked to the establishment. I want to go ahead and kind of shatter that whole illusion of Bernie Sanders and his righteousness, okay? Because really, to tell you the truth, like I said, he's just a freeloading SOB. He always has been, okay? And don't worry, we'll talk about that more towards the end of the video. But there's something else, too, that needs to be said. You see, the Democrats have been trying to roll out this equity agenda. Well, they're starting to find out that the equity agenda is not working out. Then, of course, there was this clip right here that came from Bill Maher, which I think kind of sums up exactly where Bernie's really going.
This word equity has come into the language in the last few years, and before that we didn't hear it a lot. And I think a lot of people hear equity and they hear equality, that like it's the same word. And it's not the same word and the same concept. So how would you differentiate between equity and equality?
Well, equality, we talk about, I don't know what the answer to that is. Come to think of it, equality is equality of opportunity. All right? We live in a society, we want all people to have whatever color your skin is.
Equity, I think, is more guarantee of outcome, is it not?
I think so. I think that's
okay. So which side do you come down on?
Equality.
Equality.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Boys?
Bernie Sanders is a person who takes the convenient position at that time. His base, for the most part, was a bunch of left-wing Bernie babies, Gen Z, and old-school socialists. The old-school socialists and the old-school communists, they figured out in 2016 that he wasn't really and truly what the hell they wanted. They also kind of figured it out in 2020. Hence the fact that you've got a lot of left-wing commentators on YouTube that are socialists have actually turned on him. Yeah, they're not really interested in Bernie Sanders anymore. They realize that he's a cuck, which, by the way, kind of tells you right now that the vast majority of politicians are, in fact, cucks, okay? Whatever the hell they say to you, you've got to take with a grain of salt. Bernie Sanders is definitely of that cloth. Also, something else, too, he was one of the main people pushing the equity agenda, but as you guys can see, he's simply pulling the party line. Which is where I'm going to end this video at. I got to go ahead and say this before the video is over with. Most socialists in America, they really and truly bug me for several reasons. Number one, let's take a look at free healthcare. I promise I won't be long. You want my tax dollars to pay for you to do this here. You want my tax dollars to pay for this. Now, guys, I am not objecting from healthcare, okay? I'm not objecting to that at all. I do believe in healthcare. However, I think the problem with free healthcare is this right here. Not only does it suck money off the taxpayers, but you also end up with a system more akin to what the VA is, and you're also giving the government full control of your body. To go on top of this, you're also basically telling people that they can go out and go do what the hell I just showed you. Eat like hogs, eat like pigs. Next thing you know, get heart disease, get all kinds of illnesses as a result of lifestyle choices. Guys, I'm a smoker. Do you really and truly think that I believe that the taxpayer should pay for my lung cancer or my heart problems? No. Guys, I drink. Do you think that the taxpayer should be forced to pay for my liver disease, my cirrhosis, which, by the way, I don't have any of these diseases, but do you think the taxpayer should be forced to pay for my stupid decisions? No. That right there is the main problem with free healthcare. These people are leeches, okay? These people are just freeloaders. They demand free shit. And one last thing. It really bothers me that people like Noam Chomsky and Bernie Sanders always speak some of the most anti-American bullshit out there. Most of these people, of course, are on the left. They hate capitalism. But yet they use capitalism to get where the hell they are. Think about that. Guys, John Claymore here. If you like the content, hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign up in the comment section. I'll see you guys later.